Hello everyone, welcome to Wind Down Wednesdays. I'm your host Paula Taylor and this is episode 156. I would encourage you, if you want to learn more, go to paulataylorenergy.com. You can read about my services. You can also sign up to join my newsletter. I send out a newsletter once a month. This month is going to be all about intuitive reading. What it is, what it isn't, why I do it. We're going to go a little bit into that today, but we're going to kind of focus in on one specific topic. But I encourage you, if you want to stay up to date on what's happening, I do offer virtual one-on-one sessions. I also offer virtual group events from time to time. So it's a great way to just kind of stay up to date about what's going on in the world of Paula Taylor Energy Wellness. So this topic has come up a lot recently. I was a little bit not sure I was going to do a show this week, and I didn't really have a topic in mind, and this kind of keeps coming up, and I'm getting ready to do this feature of my intuitive reading and start talking a little bit more about it. I've been studying, I think I mentioned that in the last show, been studying tarot with a really amazing teacher, Liz Zamorsky at the Femme Genius, and it's really given me more confidence. I've been doing this for a long time, but having that support of being in a community and not just taking her class, but she's got an online community that I'm a part of now where we do card pulls every single day. We give each other feedback. It's really been helpful, and it's really helped me with my confidence in my intuitive reading abilities. So we are going to talk today about past lives. What's the deal with past lives? And just really briefly, because it just came into my mind, I'm just going to mention that my intuitive reading abilities started when I kind of reawakened my intuitive connection when I received my first 2 Reiki attunements. That was 21 years ago now. But they came through initially when I was working with people on my table. I was in massage therapy school, I was studying Reiki, and I was practicing on a lot of people. We had a student clinic. And so I found that after I got my first Reiki attunement, and especially after the second one, I would be working on people and these sort of seemingly random pieces of information would come through, and I was a little bit flummoxed at first. I didn't really know what to make of them. I didn't know where they were coming from. I didn't know if I should share them with people. And so I've been doing this for 21 years, but it's just in the last few years since the pandemic started that I've been doing it more with people upright, which sounds kind of funny. But rather than having them lie on the table, I've been doing intuitive reading virtually and in person where we just sit and talk. And I sometimes do pull cards I feel like that helps with clarity. Sometimes we don't even need them. But then we also almost always do some energy work, some sound healing. And that is because the purpose of intuitive reading for me, the reason I do it, is to further your healing journey. So it doesn't, I'm kind of getting way ahead of myself, but that's okay. It doesn't behoove us to ask for intuitive information without a specific intention. I call that falling down the rabbit hole. We could fall down the rabbit hole and just go way down this path that really doesn't serve us. And sometimes that information could actually distract us from the path we're on, which I think is pursuing clarity, expansion, harmony, wholeness, oneness, healing, whatever words you like to use for that. So just keep that in mind. We're going to talk specifically about past lives today, which is something that I tap into a lot when I do intuitive reading. Sometimes it comes through in bodywork sessions as well. We'll talk a little bit about that. But the reason to work with this past life information is usually because there is something still in your body, energetically, in your field somewhere, that is being held there as a result of, usually it's something traumatic that happened in a past life. And then also, sometimes accessing that information helps us serve our calling in this life. So we'll get into that a little bit. I'll give you some examples. I meant to say that later on in the show, but it kind of came out right at the beginning, so I know it's important just because it came through really quickly. So let's talk about past lives. What's the deal with past lives? That's the title of today's show. And so first, let's just start from a basic understanding, like, what is a past life and do past lives really exist? And I'm going to answer this in the same way I did many moons ago when I first talked about ancestral healing and tapping into people who have passed on. We don't know for sure whether these things exist. There is a whole bunch of anecdotal evidence that sort of, I think, proves the existence of past lives. Do you have to believe in past lives? Absolutely not. Can it serve you? Yes, because I have countless times encountered pieces of past life energy, again, that are trapped in your current life body, in your energetic field, and they affect us in our current life. And we'll talk about that. I'll give some examples about that. If you want to learn more about past lives, I will tell you a really quick story. So my very first past life memory, I didn't realize it was a past life memory at the time. My mentor, Sherry Ford, did a guided meditation with me. And we did this thing where we kind of zoomed out of the earth and we came back in, and I saw this woman who was this indigenous, now I know, I think she was in Peru, and I think she was a medicine woman. And I think it was my very first lifetime of coming in, and I was doing the work that I do now. I was singing healing for people, among other things. At the time, I just thought it was a cool meditation. I didn't realize I tapped into, I felt really connected to this woman, but I didn't know why. And so it was sort of years later that I made the connection, like, oh, that was actually a past life memory. So sometimes you can be guided to a past life memory, and that was actually a pleasant memory, although I've uncovered more memories of that life that were far less pleasant. So let me tell you about kind of how I got into learning more about past lives. That's kind of a little hindsight version of what I now realize was my first recovered past life memory. I was in ultrasound school, so it was somewhere in about 2005. I was fairly new as a massage therapist and Reiki practitioner, and I was focused mostly on going to school at that time. I was seeing some clients, I was doing some conferences and kind of workshops, I should say, workshops with self-help and kind of taking care of yourself with my friend and mentor, Sherry Ford. But I really wasn't super focused on working with people. And so I didn't have a lot of hands-on experience at that time with working with other people. But I had this memory come in, and it was a traumatic memory. And it came in at a very inopportune moment. And I was very confused about this at first. I thought it had happened to me in this life because that's where memories usually come from. And it sort of started me down this road of figuring out what, first it was like, did this really happen to me? And I kind of talked about it to a bunch of people. And I'm not going to go into the details because there's a little bit of sexual trauma here that I don't want to go into. I don't want to trigger anybody. But it was very confusing and upsetting to me because it was definitely a memory, and it was very powerful and very potent. And so at first I was like, well, when did this happen to me? Because I don't remember this happening to me. I don't remember being in this situation. I started asking my sisters, like, is it possible that something happened to us in our childhood? And like, it just didn't feel like it came from this life. But I didn't really understand past lives. I didn't really know anything about them. And so at the time, I sat down with my mentor, Sherry Ford, and I was like, I don't understand what's happening. And she said, could this be a past life memory? And like, as soon as she said that, it was like something shifted in my brain. And then I got more context because it was a very zoomed in memory that was very vague. And like, as soon as it zoomed out, I was like, oh my gosh, I think this happened. Like, I was a concubine in somebody's family and somewhere in like Egypt or something. The other thing about this, and you can already hear me, sometimes these memories are fairly vague. Sometimes they're very specific. And none of that matters as much as, why am I remembering this and how can this help me now? And it was in that case because I was carrying this sort of sexual trauma that had happened to me lifetimes ago, and it was interfering with kind of the intimacy I was having with my husband at the time. So again, the reason for working with this information is to make things better for yourself in this life as you go forward. It's not to go down like a rabbit hole of, did this really happen and where did it happen and who was I and all of that stuff. This is one of those cases in energy work where it is almost always important to have some information. Sometimes we can just release energy. We don't even need to know what it's there for, where it came from. With past life stuff, because it's been there for so long, it's usually such a traumatic memory that it's really lodged, and we do have to kind of excavate some of the details of it in order to really look at it to figure out what needs to be released. I'll give a little more detail about that as well, because I know I'm being kind of abstract and vague. but I want to kind of finish this story. So I worked with Sherry to kind of figure out what this was and figure out how to release it. I started reading a lot about past lives. So if you're interested, there is an author. His name is Brian Weiss, Weiss. He has written a ton about past life experiences. And it's been 20 years. I just pulled out my copy today. It's been probably over 20 years since I've read this book. Same Soul, Many Bodies is the first book I read. And essentially, he was a fairly traditional psychiatrist who was just seeing patients, doing some hypnosis with his patients, which is a part of mental health for people, helping them move through things. And these memories started coming up with all these different patients that just could not have happened in this lifetime. And at first he was extremely skeptical. He didn't really understand what was happening, why it was happening. But the more he worked with people, the more he realized like these were real memories that these people were really holding in their system that needed to be seen, that needed to be processed, just like we might process a memory from this lifetime. So that's a great resource if you want to learn more about that, especially from somebody who started out as a skeptic, and I have a background in mental health, so the fact that he was a psychiatrist really interested me. And he really is a good writer. I learned a lot about past life work from him, from reading his books. So then kind of fast forward 20 years, 19 years, whatever that is now. And I've worked with so many people, and this comes up over and over and over again in the body work, in the energy work, in the intuitive reading that I do. And why is this important? I'm going to say this again, because you can do a lot of things with no intention at all. You can have different intentions about things. But I really think that the highest, the most expansive intention to have around past life work is doing it in pursuit of healing. And so what has happened for me a lot of times when I'm working with clients is that I will find a particularly stubborn area of energetic holding or physical pain in the body. And when we really get in and explore it, because that's the way I work with people, I don't just try to work the muscle out. I mean, I do that too, but what good does it do me to try to relax your muscle if it's just going to tighten right back up again? That is why I do energy work. We have to figure out why this muscle or whatever this is so tight. Why does this keep holding on to something? There's always an energetic reason for that. When we can find the energetic reason, we can release that, and then we can do the muscular work, and then the muscle actually will stay relaxed. Sometimes it takes a while because it may have been in that pattern for a while. But if we don't identify the underlying pattern, then we can't really, it's more of a Band-Aid. I can work on people's muscles all day long and they might feel better for a couple days, a week, even a month. They're going to end up, my shoulder hurts again. And some of that is just living and the way we do our lives and repetitive stress injuries and all of that, absolutely. But even those things almost always have an underlying energetic pattern, an underlying energetic pattern of stagnation, of holding, whatever it is. So over the years, working with people, I more and more and more started finding these areas that people were holding in the body that were not from this lifetime, that were sometimes ancestral. So it is sometimes, your parents, your grandparents, we now know that information, that trauma is encoded in the mitochondria of the DNA and passed down. So we know that that's kind of a physical, scientific finding of your physical lineage. But what I say is you have an energetic lineage, or sometimes now I'm even using the word quantum lineage, and that may be a whole different show talking about the quantum body. We're not going to go into that because I would get way down a tangent and that could be its own show. But past life information is held in your body. Just like current life information, just like ancestral information, just like quantum information, which is starseed origins, angelic origins, other bodies you've had that are not human. Basically, past lives, parallel lives, future lives of non-human forms. Quantum body, another whole show. Back to past lives. So I'm going to give you an example of a past life memory that I uncovered that was held in my body, just so again, to make this a little more tangible, because I'm using kind of a lot of vague, abstract terms. And it's very funny to me because yesterday I fell, I tripped over a dog toy, and I went down hard. I'm going to tell you, I was all like, "Oh, the full moon energy. I'm integrating it pretty well and it feels chaotic, but things are good." And I was having a good day. And then I fell, and at first I thought my ankle was broken, and it was very strange. Like I tripped over this dog toy, but somehow I hit my right knee and my right elbow, and then twisted my left ankle, and then fell and like hit the left side of my head on the ground. And today, where all of my pain is like in my left, where my left shoulder kind of meets my neck. And it's very funny to me because this is where the pain was that led me to this recovered past life memory I'm going to talk about today. And I'm sure that's not an accident because I don't get pain here a lot anymore because I've released that energetic pattern. But there was something about it maybe that was calling to me. I didn't have a topic for today's show. So the way things always happen is that I think things happen for a reason. And maybe that was partly, it was to get me to go into this topic today. So I had this long-standing pattern of having really intense pain at my left, kind of where my neck, the left part of my neck meets my shoulder. There, most people have a little bit of, sometimes we call them golf balls in massage therapy, but this was really intense and it was always on the left side. And so at one point I was like, why is this way? Like I couldn't figure out a physical cause for it necessarily. So I'm like, I'm going to figure out energetically, like, what is going on here? Why do I have this intense pain? And it led me to this past life memory that over the years now, this was years ago, I have gotten more and more and more detail about this and more detail about why it was useful. So again, you're going to get some hindsight here, but this is a great story because this illustrates not just exploring past life information in order to release something for better health, but it also illustrates my other point about accessing information that helps you in your calling in this life, recovering skills that you may have had in a past life that help you in this life. So I had this pain, I was exploring it, and all of a sudden I had this memory, and I'm going to give you the really detailed version now. It didn't come through that detailed at first, and that's very common with this. Sometimes it starts with like really vague pieces of information that eventually, if you keep working with it, may get more and more and more detailed. Sometimes not. Depends on how important this past life information is to your current journey, to your healing journey, to embracing your purpose in this life. So I had this memory of being, the word that came through was a druid priestess somewhere in Europe. Now I know, I'm pretty sure it was in Scotland. And it was during the time in history when Christianity was taking over. So we were transitioning out of paganism and into Christianity. And it was not good to women. We were leaving a more matriarchal version of society where women were really revered, and there were all of these healers, midwives is a lot of times what they were called, or healers, that worked with herbs, that worked with energy. In this life, I have memories of singing and dancing. That goes back through a lot of my lineages for the purposes of bringing healing to people. And these women were very powerful. They had a lot of knowledge of herbs, and they were essentially the doctors of the time. And and we know this from history, like as we shifted out of this sort of matriarchal, more pagan culture into this patriarchal Christian culture, we started calling these women witches, and we started hunting them, and we started killing them because they were threatening to this new sort of patriarchal hierarchy. And so the memory I had got more and more detailed over the years, and it essentially I was sort of exiled. I went into hiding, and I was living in a cave. I feel like if I was in the right place in Scotland, I could actually find this cave. That's how realistic this memory is. Sometimes they are that way. Sometimes it's much more vague. And again, this is years of kind of recovering pieces of information. So I was kind of in hiding in this cave, but people from the village would still come for the healing that I offered, for the herbs I had, things like that. And eventually they found me, these Christian men that were kind of essentially crusaders. That's not probably the right technical historical term, but basically they were witch hunters. They were going through towns, finding women like me, healers, labeling them witches, torturing them, and killing them. So I have this memory of them dragging me out of the cave, and this might get a little bit violent. So if you might want to fast forward a couple minutes if you don't want to hear this, but it's important to kind of explain where this pain came from. So they dragged me out of the cave, they took me somewhere, they hung me on a wall, and they beat me over and over again in that specific place in my shoulder with some sort of like wooden stick or probably a variety of things. Eventually, I just recovered this part recently. I think they took me down and drowned me. And that was a fairly common test of a witch's powers. They would, weight you down, throw you in a lake. And if you drown, oops, you weren't a witch, but oh well. And if you didn't, then you were a witch. And then I think they killed you anyway. That was the idea. So essentially, the whole point of this was to create fear, to create fear in the minds of the people who had trusted these women. We had to figure out a way to get them to turn to the church instead of to these healers. And this is an interesting point that I want to bring up, because sometimes you'll have a very strong aversion to something in this life that is linked to a past life. So as soon as I started getting into kind of the healing community, people would talk about herbs and how powerful herbs are, how powerful herbal medicine can be. And I was always like, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want anything to do with your herbs. I don't want to know anything about that. And I couldn't really explain why. It was like just this really strong, like visceral, that is not my area. And now I understand that being an herbalist got me killed, tortured and killed in another life. So that was held in my field, this idea that understanding herbal medicine is not going to be safe for me was held still so strongly in my field that I did not want anything to do with that in this lifetime. I did not want to expose myself in that way. And there's actually a term for this. Some people call it the witch wound. Some people call it the healer wound. And this is that a lot of people who come here to do healing work have been here before, a lot of times, many times before, and we have been persecuted, we have been killed. And there is this wound that we carry, this fear of being seen, of claiming our light and letting it shine, as I say in my slogan. It's really vulnerable, and we sometimes don't understand why. And these kind of past life memories can actually help us understand that, can actually help us move through that. The other thing that I sort of gained from that lifetime, I connected with that version of myself. Her name was Rowena, and eventually she decided to move on. She was sort of one of my spirit guides for a while, but she really helped me reconnect to the power of women, the power of community, of women supporting women. There was a space in my solar plexus and my sacral chakra, what I call the cave, where she invited all of these amazing elders to kind of take up residence in that energetic space. And I would check in there, and they would have a fire going, like a cauldron. They'd have a fire going, they'd be talking, they kept this space really lively. And when I was going through my infertility journey, they took care of my babies. Every time I lost a baby, they would have the baby. Or when I was pregnant and like hoping that this time would be different and I wouldn't miscarry, they would be keeping my babies safe. And it was really such a powerful support for me in that time, emotionally, spiritually, just knowing that even if I couldn't have those babies physically in this life, that in that spiritual plane, there was this community of elder women taking care of them and making sure that they knew they were loved and that they were wanted, even though they couldn't make it here physically. So this was really powerful for my healing, but it also allowed me to start tapping back into this energy, this earth energy of this, what we might now call witchy, that is really just this connection to our mother, the earth, that women had for centuries before it was beaten and killed out of us, essentially. It helped me start to reground. It helps me. I work with other people now, especially women, around this idea of the cave and reclaiming this sacred space of your belly. That we're told is always too big and too flabby and whatever, this womb space that we have complicated relationships with now. This is a sacred space. And from that past life memory, from Rowena, I learned how to access it for myself, and I learned how to help other women access it. So this is powerful work, both for our own healing and also sometimes for the space we hold for other people. It doesn't have to be that you're a healer. It could be that you do that work in your family. These are the reasons why we do this work. And I think that's all I need to say about that. I could go into so many examples and such cool things. And especially recently, people have just been opening up to this. It's one of the reasons I'm talking about this year, is because there is this opportunity to really open to this information in a way that we never have before, and to really reintegrate these parts of ourselves that are lost. The last thing I will say is that a lot of times these memories are traumatic. Not always, but a lot of times. And I think the reason for that is because trauma is something that we tend to carry. Again, we carry ancestral trauma through the DNA. We carry, a lot of times when I work with people, it is the most traumatic memory of that lifetime. A lot of times it's death, because it doesn't get much more traumatic than dying. Sometimes not, but that is what's being held in the body that needs to be released in order to bring more clarity, to bring more expansion, to bring more harmony. Now, also, getting a little bit into that other topic that, again, I think maybe we'll have a whole show on, this is sort of an extension of this type of work, is what I'm calling this idea of reactivating, of reclaiming your quantum bodies. So one of the things that's happened to me recently is, actually, again, I don't want to go way down that. I think that would be a whole show. But reclaiming energy that allows us to help people in this life, I think, is one of the themes of this year. And anyone can do that. You don't have to be in a healing profession. You just have to be open and ready. And that's the last thing I'll say about kind of this idea of, how do I access this information? And the first thing is, you are going to need help with this. This is a form of trauma work. And at some point in the trauma healing journey, I firmly believe everyone needs help. We cannot do it alone. And there might be times that they're working alone, but you really almost always need some sort of support from a professional, whether it's a mental health professional, a body worker, somatic professional, all of the above. The same is true for this past life information. Sometimes just accessing the information you need help with. You need someone like me who can kind of open the space and call the energy through, call the information through. But it's also important to note that you can't really access this until you're ready. So sometimes I have people come to me and they're like, oh, I heard you do past life stuff. I want past life information, and nothing comes through. It's just because it's not that time, or it's not information that's going to serve you. Because again, I work with information that furthers your healing journey. So we're not just kind of skipping down a road of like, oh, I had this memory, and there are people who do that. There are people who do past life regression just kind of for the fun of it, I think. But to me, that is actually a distraction from what we're really here to do, which is to reclaim ourselves, to find that clarity, expansion, and harmony, and to figure out what our purpose is. How can we serve in this lifetime? And so if the information doesn't serve those purposes, it's not going to come through. It's also not going to come through if you're not really ready to receive it. The other thing that I've determined now as well is that sometimes people come to see me and they've got a laundry list of things. You know, I want some physical massage. I've got this pain here. I want to do this. I want to do this. And if you list 6 things that we're going to try to do in a session, none of them are going to be very focused, because we're barely dipping our toe in a bunch of different ponds. So focusing on an intuitive reading journey specifically is, I think, the best way. It gives you the highest likelihood of accessing this type of information. And sometimes I never know what's going to come through. Sometimes we end up focusing on a memory from this life. Sometimes it is a past life memory. Sometimes it's different, and I am just a channel. And so when I open for information, I don't know what's going to come through. I don't know if we're going to get past life information. Even if somebody really wants it, it may not be that the timing is right. It may not be that it's useful to them to know. So working on this is something that you will almost 100% need support with. Even me, that first time I had that flash of this very specific memory, and it freaked me out, and I didn't know what to do with it. Again, I didn't even know where it came from. I didn't understand that it was a past life memory at first. I needed help. I needed support. I went to see my mentor. I started reading those books. So if you want to get into this, I highly encourage that you find an experienced person who can help you on this journey. Maybe you already have kind of snippets of memories that you don't know where they came from. Maybe you have, a lot of times how this starts like it did with me. I have this pain that's always there. It never goes away. I don't understand why. And it can be a physical pain. It can be emotional. I have this pattern. I've seen that a lot of times. I have this pattern of relationships with people, and I keep repeating it. And sometimes we find out that that goes back to a past life pattern. And in order to release the pattern in this life, we've got to look at the pattern in that old life and kind of set it free there. So this is complex work. Absolutely, it's something that you will want to do with support. And so what are we going to do in the meditation today? Because there are lots of meditations out there that will full on take you into a past life regression with no one there to help you. And that is not an area that I feel comfortable with. I think what we will do, we do this a lot with the trauma work we do. We're going to just barely dip our toe into this. And what we're going to ask, I think the ultimate question is kind of, is there past life information that is accessible to me that will serve me in this life? Because again, information for information's sake, we have so much access to information now. And a lot of times it doesn't serve us. It overloads us. It distracts us. It brings more chaos. It brings more muddiness. It brings less harmony to our field to just pursue information for the sake of it with no other intention in mind. So we're going to just get nice and comfortable and relaxed. And then I'm going to ask just a couple of really general questions about past lives that might just sort of gently open your mind or gently open the door to the possibility. If you want to pursue them further, reach out to somebody and get support with that. You can reach out to me. I do one-on-one sessions. You can read more about that book through the website. That's paulataylorenergy.com. It doesn't have to be me, of course. Anybody you choose to work with, make sure that you feel resonant with them, that you feel safe with them. You know, it's appropriate to ask for a conversation ahead of time. I will sometimes do a short call with people just to make sure that they feel comfortable, that I think I can help them with what they're looking for. There are people out there that are not operating with the intention for the highest good. And especially when you're opening to information that's beyond kind of the physical body and this sort of physical lifetime, you really want to be cognizant of who you're working with and respectful of how you're doing this work, because you want to call in information that's going to serve you, that is for your highest good. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. So let's meditate together. So for this meditation, find a comfortable position. You might feel really supported by lying down for this one. This might be a good meditation to do before you drift off to sleep, to kind of open this window of information a little bit and then sleep on it. If you're going to sit up, make sure that you're comfortable and make sure that you're supported. Maybe have something behind your back. Just take care of yourself, because we always want to be safe and comfortable when we're accessing this kind of information as much as possible. We need to be in that rest and digest mode, that parasympathetic mode, before we can really open to this kind of information. And sometimes that takes multiple sessions when I'm working with people. So you may need to repeat this meditation a few times before you feel like you have access to this information. And that's completely fine. It will be here for you. So let's start with a little bit of gentle movement. I'm going to shrug my shoulders and drop them a few times. Just noticing if you've got some tension or discomfort in your body. Just really gently moving just to about 20 or 30% of your capacity. Maybe you circle your wrists and ankles a little bit. And then as you're ready, we're going to take 3 to 5 or more oxytocin breaths. We're going to breathe in through the nose, letting the belly float out strongly. We're going to sigh that breath out with an audible ha sound. And this triggers vibration of the vagus nerve. This is the nerve that can help tell our body that we're safe, bringing us out of that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode into the rest and digest, the ease response. So I'll do one with you, and then you'll want to do at least 3 to 5 more of those. Breathing in through the nose. And you might find you want to continue or go back to a little bit of movement as you continue with your oxytocin breathing. After your 3rd or 4th breath, just bring yourself still. Find as comfortable a position as you can. You may still find some pain or discomfort in the body. That's okay. So whenever we're accessing intuitive information, we want to make sure we're really grounded, we're really connected to the earth. We want to stay in our physical body and let that information come to us. We don't want to leave our body. And we don't need to. In fact, being fully grounded and present in our body opens that channel even further. We get better information, we get more information when we're embodied, when we're fully present. So start with whatever area of your body is closest to or contacting the floor. Maybe it's your feet, maybe it's your bottom, maybe it's the whole back of your body. If you're lying on a bed, just imagine that you're lying on the floor. And really feel the earth beneath you. There's this beautiful kind of settling, this beautiful heaviness, this really beautiful darkness. It's not a scary darkness. It's more like the darkness of a beautiful garden soil that's getting ready to grow amazing flowers or fruits or vegetables. This is that feeling of darkness, this feeling of being really embraced and held. You might imagine that you are standing in a beautiful garden or on a beach, feeling your toes in the sand. Maybe you're lying on the earth itself. Maybe you're at the park in a beautiful patch of grass. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining on your face. You can hear the birds. You can feel the slightest breeze. It's just the perfect setting, and you feel so comfortable. You feel so heavy and relaxed. Allow that earth energy to come into your body. You might imagine the soles of your feet opening. You might imagine the base of your spine opening, just calling in that beautiful energy, letting yourself settle here in the body. Put your hands on your belly, maybe one above the other, maybe right on top of each other, whatever feels good here. And really let your belly open down to this earth energy. You might actually find the muscles in your pelvis relaxing. You might find your belly relaxing, like let it happen. Don't suck your belly in. No one's watching you. This is the time to really surrender into this beautiful earth energy, this beautiful support, calming, fully present in your body. You've perhaps been in your mind space all day, all week. So really let your awareness come down into the belly now, down into the hips and the pelvis, down into the legs and the feet. Focusing on this lower half of your body and really feeling present here as much as you can. Giving it a moment or two. I'm going to give a little bit of dimensional frequency expansion sound to help support you getting settled in this lower part of the body, getting settled on the earth. And from this really settled space, you can relax your arms down if you'd like, or leave them on your belly if it feels good. Now we're going to allow the top of the head, the crown chakra, to open. And we're going to invite that beautiful, intuitive information, that unconditional light and love, that source energy, to flow in through the top of the head, filling the head and the face, the scalp, the skull. Let this beautiful light flow into your throat, into your jaw, into the back of your neck. Invite this beautiful, loving light to flow into your shoulders, down your upper arms, into the elbows, down your forearms, into your wrists and hands. Invite this beautiful, loving source energy to flow into your chest and upper back. Let it come down into the lower part of your back, through the mid-back, through the belly, down into the lowest part of your belly, down into your tailbone. And just pause for a moment here and notice the mingling of these two beautiful energies, this buoyant light energy meeting this really rich, supportive earth energy. And allow this light to flow all the way down through the lower legs into the earth, connecting this circuit. So we've got this beautiful, rich, dark energy flowing up from the ground all the way up the body, out the head, kind of fountaining out into the area around your body. And then we've got this beautiful flow of source energy coming in through the head and down through the body, meeting the earth. This beautiful flow of energy up and down, in and out. Really allow yourself to feel that. Feel really settled and supported here. But notice that light energy creating a sense of buoyancy. And you might find it helpful to place a hand on your heart here, not necessary, but it might feel good as we begin to open this intuitive channel further. Having a hand, maybe one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, really staying in the body here. And just imagine that crown chakra. There's like a tube at the top of your head that's just opening a little further. Or you might imagine a faucet that you're turning on more of this beautiful light energy flowing in through the head, more space for it to flow in. This is where that intuitive information comes in. So just noticing, you might feel a shift in your energy here. You might feel nothing, that's fine. I feel an expansion of my head. It feels like my head has actually gotten bigger. The top of my head is starting to tingle as this information, as this energy comes through. And I want to be grounded in my body, in my heart space, in my belly, setting the intention here out loud if possible. Any information I call in today comes in for my highest good. I open only to information that serves my highest good. Really important to set that intention anytime you're opening to this information, to this intuitive source energy. And then as you're ready, if it feels good, you can relax your arms down, leave your hands on your belly, on your heart, whatever feels good here. We're just going to ask a few questions and then we'll get into some sound just to help support the flow of this energy. If you've never done this before, don't be surprised if nothing comes through. You're going to need some practice here. Don't be surprised if this comes through very slowly or very little information comes through. Maybe you just get a little flash. All of this is completely normal. Even people who do this for a living sometimes don't get energy, don't get information. And again, we've set that intention that anything that comes in is for the highest good. We don't want all information coming in. We want information that serves our highest good, that serves us. So the first question to ask, you might go back to an earlier session we did about kind of finding the yes and no in your body. You might feel a bit of an expansion or a contraction. Am I open to intuitive information for my highest good? Just see how that feels in your body. If you get a sense of expansion, of relaxation, of space, that's usually a yes. If you're getting a no, that's just a no for today. So stay in this sort of energetic pattern of relaxing, of releasing down into the earth, drawing energy up, and then drawing energy in through your head. Don't go any further with the questions. They'll be here indefinitely. Am I open to intuitive information for my highest good today? And if it's a no, again, completely fine. This is where you'll stay, just kind of in this beautiful flow of energy serving you so much here. If you feel like you're getting a yes, then we're going to go on to the next question. Is there past life information about me that might serve my highest good? And again, just get a sense if you get a yes or a no. And again, if you get a no, it could just be a no for today. Is there past life information about me that serves my highest good? Next question. Is now a good time to access this information? And see, I just got a no about that. I got a little contraction. So I'm not going to ask for any specific past life information today because it's not the right time. It doesn't serve me to try to force information in if it's not the right time. So this is kind of our last question here. Can you give me a bit of that information right now? Is it in my best interest to receive a bit of past life information? And if so, please give it to me, just a bit. We're going to be very gentle with this. And again, you might get nothing here. I got a no for the last question, so nothing's coming through. Today's not the day for me to get some new past life information, and that is completely fine. You can come back and repeat this. You may also find that you just need help with this work. This is complex work. This is trauma work. And so it just may not be appropriate for you to access this information yourself or at this particular moment. So from this space here, if you're not accessing information, just really feel the flow of this energy. I'm going to do a little bit of sound to open this flow. Opening to this intuitive source is never a waste of time. It's never a bad idea to sit in this receptive mode. You never know what's going to come through. And if today is not the day for past life information, it might be the day for something else. So our last question here, right before we get into sound, is there any information you can give me that will serve me today? Not past life specific. Is there any information I might receive right now that serves me today? And just see, maybe you get a different type of information. Maybe you're just really enjoying being in the flow of this energy, sitting in stillness. That is always for our highest good. So sit with any one of those questions or just sit and enjoy the flow of this energy as we step into a little bit of sound. Seya shea kataya. Se shana seoya. Kwe anaye si shaya. Kweana se shia ye ya ya. Uyana hia e ya. Sway. Kwea e o. Sway e ya. Sway e ya. Just being in this space for a few more moments, opening to any intuitive information that's coming in for your highest good today, recognizing that if nothing's coming through, then that's as it's meant to be, and there's no rush here. The universe wants to support us, and it will not give us what we are not ready to receive. So if nothing's coming through today, what we're working on is just being open to receive. So let's do a little bit of affirmation before we step out of this. I'm assisting you with some Reiki energy here as well. If you can state these out loud, that's your most powerful way of speaking to the universe, but you can also say them silently. I am open to receive for the highest good. I am tapped into my intuition for the highest good. I easily receive intuitive information for my highest good. You can add anything here you'd like. You can alter those statements to resonate more fully with your own frequency. That's the most powerful way to set intention. And then as you're ready, we're going to gently close that crown chakra today. We had it really widely open. So we're going to gently close it for the highest good. You might decide to leave a little bit of an opening there. You might close it fully. Let this be intuitive. Trust that intention for the highest good to titrate that energy, to set that opening to whatever it needs to be, whether it's fully closed, whether it's open a little bit, but we do want to close it a little bit just for our highest good, for the safety of moving forward in the world. If we're fully open all the time, it's really overwhelming. So it's nice to do this work in a safe space, open fully, and then allow yourself, not necessarily to close off, but just to close, turn that faucet down a little bit. So maybe it's more of a drip or a dribble than a full-on hose-like flow. After you've done that, just come back to your belly for a moment, really staying settled here, feeling that connection to the earth again, down through your feet. You really want to maintain this sense of connection, of embodiment, as you move forward with the rest of your day or evening. If you're in a safe space to fall asleep and you'd like to do so, this is a good time to drift off. Again, setting that intention. Anything I receive in my sleep is for my highest good. And then just start to slowly move again. Maybe shrug your shoulders if you're coming back to the rest of your day or evening. Maybe rotate your wrists, your ankles. Just moving in the body to be in preparation for coming back to whatever it is you need to do the rest of this day or this evening. Take a nice big oxytocin breath, sigh it out, that audible ha sound. Sat Nam. The truth of your identity is that you have lived many lives. You are a vast being of love and light. And you do have access to intuitive information that serves you in any given moment. As you're ready, take 1 or 2 more deep breaths, move around a little bit, and then open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to reach out. You can contact me through my website. It's paulataylorenergy.com. This is a really complicated subject. It's also kind of a fun subject. It's something that I really enjoy exploring with people, so I'm here for you if you have any questions about this. Have a beautiful rest of your day or evening, a wonderful week. I will see you on the next episode of Wind Down Wednesdays. No.